Welcome to the Big Game Hunting Podcast, where we help hunters like you prepare for the big game hunting adventures you've always dreamed of. Now, here's your host, John McAdams.
Hello, John McAdams here. Welcome to episode 293 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. As promised, we're kicking off our 2024 Africa mini-series this week, and we have the perfect guest on the show to do just that. Phil Massaro is back with us today to talk about an intense leopard hunt he did back in 2023 with Tanya Blake Safaris in Zimbabwe. We have a great show for you today. I know you're going to love it. As you'll see here in just a minute, this hunt got pretty crazy out there. Phil did a really good job of telling the story as always, so this is going to be really cool. I enjoyed recording this episode. I know you're going to enjoy listening to it. Before we get started, make sure you are on my email list. Click the link in the show notes or go to huntingguns101.com. Sign up there. You'll get my free ebook when you do that, and you'll also start to receive the email updates I send out every weekday. If you like the podcast, you will love those emails. They're both entertaining and informative. So like I said, click the link in the show notes or go to huntingguns101.com. Okay, let's get started talking with Phil about this leopard hunt. Well, good morning, Phil. It is great talking to you again. Great having you back on the show again today to talk about Africa and especially this really cool leopard hunt that you went on earlier this year.
Yes, good morning to you too, John, and it's fantastic to be back. Always love chatting with you.
So we've talked about all kinds of stuff in our previous interviews. We've talked about hunting buffalo. We've talked about big boars. We've talked about double rifles, different experiences that you've had in different parts of Africa. But this is the first leopard hunt that you've ever, the first leopard that you've ever taken. Is that correct for all those hunts that you've been on?
Correct, sir. It's the first cat hunt I've ever booked, although I've had experiences with cats before. But this was the first intentional cat hunt where it was going to be a dedicated, kind of sit down on a bait and make this happen. We did it in the Tariza block of Zimbabwe, which is a part of their national park system. So the rules were no artificial light. The leopard had to be taken in natural light, and obviously once it's dark, your hunt is done. So it's more of the Hemingway silhouetted cat in the tree kind of experience, which reduces your odds. And I'm not poo-pooing anybody's means of taking a leopard because they're hard enough to take in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. But this added a bit of an additional challenge.
Now, you previously had hunted the Tariza block. We talked about this back in episode 74. That was where you had your double buffalo with a double rifle there. So people can go listen to that episode to hear that story. So it sounds like this area has been pretty good to you over the years.
Yeah, Tariza and I get along pretty well. It's a great block. It's run by the Ambrose brothers, Malcolm and Floyd. And, they have different professional hunters that come in. But the Tariza block is a pretty famous block. Right on the Sengwer River, which is what they call a dead river. I guess it flows only when it floods, when the heavy rains come. So it's a sand river that you kind of go across, but it's home to a very wide variety of game. You've got great buffalo, tons of elephant, plenty of plains game, kudu, zebra, eland, warthog, bushbuck, up and down the list. But it's got cats, not too many lions. We've heard lions roar, and they come through quite often, but there's a lot of leopards in here, as you're about to hear.
Now, you booked this hunt primarily as a leopard hunt, right? That was your focus going into it, correct?
Right. I've killed a half a dozen buffalo, and I'm not saying that I'm done with buffalo, because if I were terminal or to be executed or whatever the case may be, and I had one hunt left in my can here, it would be a buffalo hunt. To me, that's the ultimate hunting. It's what I enjoy best. But I was at the Dallas Safari Club show, and I've known Tanya Blake, who is the only fully licensed professional hunter who's a female in Zimbabwe. She's the only woman who's got, the full bag license. And we talked about doing a buffalo and some other stuff. And she goes, well, why don't we do a leopard? And the wife looked at me, and I looked at the wife, and she didn't say no. So, we worked things out, and, Tanya has a very good reputation with cats. There's a handful of people in Zimbabwe that I know really, really know cats well. And she's among, the cream of the crop. Now, my big thing is, being a deer hunter from upstate New York, your primary hunting method is to find a stump, sit on it, and wait for a deer to come by. Mm-hmm. At 52, I've been doing this since I've been 16, and not to say that I'm bored with it, but it's not my ideal. I like to hunt with my legs, and a leopard hunt is not a hunt with your legs. A leopard hunt is a chess game. So it's a bit of a different mindset compared to buffalo. You know, you're going to find tracks with a buffalo, and you're going to walk with the trackers and all of that. With a leopard, you want to bait him. So what you want to do is put up a quarter of a zebra or whatever meat you have available. We use zebra. And you want this leopard to find a piece of meat stashed in a tree that he didn't kill and knows it's not his, but he wants to steal. Mm-hmm. And you want him to do this in daylight. One of the smartest and most elusive predators on the planet Earth. So it's to say the least, it's a bit of a challenge, and I knew it going in. But yes, this was the primary thing, and I decided it was time for me in my career. Let's try this leopard hunting thing. And you know, it's kind of funny because I was at the show, and Craig Boddington and I were talking, and you know, he said, Phil, I spent 63 nights in a blind before I had a crack at a leopard. Well, thank you for cursing me, Craig.
And so, booking this as primarily a leopard hunt, was it a 14-day safari then?
Correct. It's a 14-day. What I had to do, I think we had 11 days. So I asked Tanya to pre-bait for me. And she had taken a zebra and put up some quarters and started to hang baits and what have you. She runs a lot of trail cameras. I brought over some of those solar charged spy points, which worked out real well because batteries are hard to get in Africa, number one, ridiculously expensive. And to have one solar charged was really neat. We did have a hyena eat one, but you know, that's a different story. What ended up happening though was we didn't have a cat feeding by the time I had gotten there. They had tracks in the river and stuff like that. So on day one, it was essentially day zero, if you will. You know, the baits were up, but we hadn't had a blind built, and you know, the routine is kind of like this. You know, you'll get your baits hung in areas where they have either seen cats before, or they find spoor, or they find scat, and then it's just that you wake up in the morning, get on the truck after coffee and breakfast, and you just go and check the baits. Now you want to hang your baits. There's a science to this almost. You want to hang it where you can visibly see it from a roadway, so that you don't have to, you know, get off the car and walk in. Mm-hmm. In other words, a cat wouldn't be nearly as fearful of a vehicle as it would be you on foot. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to check your bait. If you see it's been hit, you get out or you drive right to it. If in most instances, and check the camera cards. You know, do we have a leopard on here? Was it a genet? Was it a hyena? You know, could it be a lioness? Because they will climb trees. So there's all sorts of different scenarios. And then from there, you spend your day checking baits. If you have one hit, then obviously you want to see, is it a good tom? Is it a female? And if it's a good tom, you start building a blind. So I think we had 4 days of that where nothing was getting hit. And of course I was getting a little apprehensive, as is my nature. And she said, don't worry, you know, pats me on the shoulder. We're going to get this done. And one day we rolled into a particular bait in a little sand river. And I looked at, you know, with the binocular, I said, that's been hit. The tracker goes, maybe genet one. I said, okay, well, you know, whatever. We got there, and it was hit by not one, but it was two leopards. Once we pulled the cards. There was a female that had come in first, and she, you know, did her little dainty snacking, and then a good tom came in. I mean, he was, you know, what was that? O'Connor that wrote The Big Ones Look Big? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you could tell in the photo that he was big. So they had seen tracks in the Sand River in this area, and one of the Shushi had told me that this leopard was limping, one of the trackers. What do you mean he's limping? I can barely tell a hyena from a leopard track. He goes, no, Bunna, look, his left foot is hurt. Maybe snare, maybe, you know, whatever. He broke something or shot at. He was limping on his left foot. I said, okay, if you see it, I believe you. And lo and behold, you could see when he dismounted the tree on the camera, he's limping on his left foot. Wow. I said, yeah, that's right? I mean, it's crazy. So we get very excited. Now we've got a female and a male on this bait, and now it went from mundane riding in a truck with the stinking gut bucket behind you to freshen up the baits to, oh my Lord, it's on. And out come the machetes and the axes and the baling twine and all the other stuff to build a blind. And about 60 yards away across this little sand river, Tanya builds a blind. natural materials. She used a little bit of netting for the roof to keep the glare off of us and to keep the bugs and the heat down. But all that, and within, I don't know, 2 hours, you couldn't even tell it was there. It was amazing. You could have given me all day. It would have looked, I mean, really, it would have been silly. The blind was up, and we decided we were going to sit that evening. Now, the nice thing about modern technology, different than it was 25 years ago. I don't know if you remember, there used to be a thing called trail timers, where it was like a little digital clock, and across the base of your tree, you would put a piece of fishing line, and as the cat went up and tripped the line, it would stop the clock, so you knew what time a cat was coming in. Or they used to do it with a digital watch. The trip line would pull the battery out.
Okay.
So, bottom line now, with modern video cameras and trail cameras and stuff, you can really. Some people, it's cheating. It's not cheating. You're going to shoot the right cat, or you don't want to sit that because it's the wrong cat. And I think it's a better way of judging what we're hunting here. Because, I mean, look, leopard are protected animals, and they're, very, very valuable. You certainly don't want to shoot a female, mistaking it for a male, because I think it's like a $20,000 or $25,000 fine. So it was very nice to know that, yes, we had 2 leopards on here. Yes, they are 2 very different sizes, but we had a leopard. That was the bottom. So they were checking his tracks and where he was coming in from and coming back. And the other tracker, Bonnie, he comes over and he hands me a handful of these little red beans. And they're called lucky beans. They're just a particular plant that grows there. So I kind of stashed them in my bag. And I said, maybe this will work. So cut the story a little bit shorter. We sat 2 nights and didn't have him, went back and checked the camera, and he had been there on the bait until about an hour after daylight. So now we knew he was heavy on the bait. The female hadn't been showing up as much, but the tom was. And we knew he was trying to hang near it. So we decided to get up real early and hunt him the next morning. So I think we were up at 3, made our merry way. We had already made a clear path, to the back side of the blind. And, that was quite a bit of an effort to boot. But we snuck in the pitch dark, and we didn't hear anything. And we sat there till probably 9:30, hoping he was going to come in and feed late, but he never did. So here I am in the blind, getting kind of disgruntled, but not trying to show it. And Tanya looks at me and smiles. I said, "What's up?" She goes, "Well, he wasn't here feeding this morning." I said, "Okay." He had, when we probably pulled the cards, he had left probably 5 a.m. She said, which means he's going to be here tonight because he's going to get hungry. I said, "Okay, this is going to be cool." So I try to, maintain my composure. We get back in the blind about 3 o'clock, and I'm nodding off and falling off to sleep, trying not to snore. And just before, in the classic story, just before dark, it probably, if I'm remembering right, it gets dark at like 6:30. So maybe 6:20. You start to hear the bush buck bark, and the elephants are making racket, and then the baboons go crazy. So, maybe not. And we had 5 minutes, John, and it, like liquid, this thing pours up in the tree.
Oof.
And my jaw drops, because to see him on camera is one thing, but if you've never seen a leopard go up in a tree or just come into a bait, it's an experience that you'll never, ever, ever forget, ever. I mean, it's just amazing. So he's in the tree, but here's the issue. We're losing light quick. Tanya's looking through the binos. We're waiting to see, A, we need to get a shot, but B, more importantly, we have to make sure it's not the female. Now, it's only 60 yards away, but it's in that grainy half light, still legal, but, now it's on. And I start to get the shakes, which is, I guess, what you pay for, right?
Right.
So I'm on the gun. I got a beautiful little loophole, 2 to 10, dialed right down. It's nice and bright. It's got a little fire dot right in the center of the crosshair. And I'm watching this pat go up and down the tree, and then all of a sudden he's down out of the tree, and he's back up in the tree. You know how cats act. They're like house cats, but just 150 pounds. So she's going, I can't discern. I'm not 100% certain it's the tom. And finally the cat gets up in the tree, reaches his right paw out and pulls an entire zebra leg to his mouth. And she says, "That's the tom, shoot him." I said, "Okay," because the female wouldn't be strong enough to do that.
Okay.
So the cat's slightly quartering. He's feeding. I get the safety off. I calm myself as best I can, which probably wasn't very good. And I put it where I want the bullet to go, and I break the trigger. And, this Ramirez gun is a shooter. It's a 3/4 minute gun with a good trigger and great glass. And in 9.362, so I've got enough bullet. And I see the muzzle flash with my left eye. There was no flinching. There was no nothing. The shot went true. I hear the bullet hit, and then the silence. My ears start ringing for what's left of my hearing, and she punches me in the arm. Punches me in the arm. She goes, "You knocked him out of the tree." She goes, "But I think he ran. He didn't run, but he trotted off." I said, "Okay, but he got knocked out of the tree. All right, that means we hit him hard. Not a problem." Now, ironically, my wife, who I love dearly and was on safari with me, but can't sit still, was with the camp manager about a 1/4 mile away up on a bluff having sundowners, and they heard the shot. So we kind of gather our composure, give the cat a half an hour to lay down, and they meet us at the bait with all the trackers and everybody's celebrating, et cetera, et cetera. We take a look, and there's blood underneath the tree. Clearly, there's blood up behind the bait, but we don't have the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all right, let's figure this out. Now we got pitch black, and we've got to follow up a wounded cat in the dark. Did you want the full Monty, sir? Can we get you the ticket for the entire experience?
Full meal deal.
Exactly. Give me everything you got. So we ended up with Tanya had her 416 Rigby. Floyd was there, the camp manager. He had a 4.58. I had my gun. I took the scope off, went back with the iron sights. And the tracker had Tanya's other 308 and a bunch of guys with flashlights. So like a little merry band of fools, we go off in the dark, in the thick stuff to find a wounded leopard. And I'm going to tell you, and if the listeners could possibly understand, if you're listening to this, you're probably a hunter and you've entered and exited the forest and the woods and the thick stuff in the dark, out of the dark, whatever the case may have been. To do that with a known wounded 150-pound furry razor blade ready to eat your face off at any minute is a bit of an exhilarating experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You kind of, make your peace with God. This is cool. And you want to be able to shoot clearly without, a lot of guns, nervous people. You never want to have an accident that way. So muzzle control and trigger control and all of that stuff is paramount. But a leopard will hide behind a bush that you wouldn't think would hide a rabbit, and they'll just come at you. So this goes on. We follow blood. They're looking. They're talking. They're examining the blood. They're looking. We think you hit him in the neck. And no, I didn't hit him in the neck. No way that gun, unless the gun's broken, I didn't hit him in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
He goes up around a hill, and I thought we went a long way. In retrospect, it was probably only 200, 250 yards. And the cat had laid down and was bleeding good, but he wasn't dead. So what he's trying to do in retrospect, the cat was making a circle, almost coming back to the bait because there was a particularly thick patch of Jesse bush. And if you don't know what that is, it kind of looks like a dark green leaf. A forsythia plant will come up and then almost like a waterfall or fountain. It'll come up and then go back down to the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's got a little area under. Well, that's what this is, but on steroids. And it's so dark underneath it at noontime, you need a flashlight. So he's making for this stuff. And in the dark, Tanya says, "Look, we're going to hang a little piece of toilet tissue here or whatever to mark the spot, and we're going to come back in the morning." She goes, "Somebody's going to get scratched in this thick stuff." I said, "Okay, not a problem." Now, at that point in time, I'm entirely dejected.
Yeah,
I've cocked this up. I mean, it's a gorgeous Tom, and somehow or another things went wrong. So we're on the way back, and she just looks at me and she says, "Look, this is not the first time I've done this. Not my first rodeo. Listen to me. We're going to get your cat." I said, "Yeah, what about the hyena?" She goes, "We'll get in there as soon as it's full light. We're not going in half dark. As soon as it's full light, we're going to get in there." So I spend a fitless night and a couple of G&Ts, and the wife's looking at me like, it'll be okay. I say, "Yeah, no, I botched this one." So I do my best to keep my game face on and get up again in the morning, and out we go, and we find the spot where we were, and she takes 2 steps, and you hear this thing rustling underneath this Jesse bush.
Ooh.
Now, he laid there all night. So 2 things go through my mind. Number 1, okay, we've still got the cat.
Mm-hmm.
This is awesome. Number 2, but he's not dead.
Yeah.
I said, boy, oh boy, oh boy. So now it's one of those, I call them come to Jesus meetings. All right, Massaro, you screwed this up, but we're not out of the game yet. So she kind of peels back and looks at me and I mean, she got military leader face on. And she said, look, you remember the road where we came in where we found the lucky bean? Yeah. She goes, I want you to take Big John, who was the government game scout, who had an AK-47. I want you to put him where, she indicated a particular spot where, the trail crosses. Okay. She goes, I want you to back off 100 yards where you can see him so you can't hit him and he can't hit you. But this cat's going to come out of this shit and we're going to kill him. When you see him, shoot him. And like I say, you want to get your money's worth? Here we go.
All right. Jeez.
Now I said, all right, what are you doing? She goes, I'm going in that Jesse bush. And I mean, this is crazy. She knows this cat's wounded. She knows this cat's hit. She knows this cat's going to turn. And in they go. So I get into position, and it's one of those situations where your tongue goes dry and your hands start sweating and things start to move in slow motion. And I've got 3 go-away birds over my head giving a concert. I'm like, boys, I kind of need to concentrate here if you don't mind. So 20 minutes goes by, and it's that impatient waiting. 20 minutes can seem like a lifetime during that kind of thing. And I hear the greatest sound I've ever heard. Whack! I hear her 416 go off and hit something. And then I hear, the trackers start going crazy. So they grab me and we walk around, and they're all standing outside the bush. Poor Tanya's shirt is ripped up from those bushes. She said, listen, he's got to be dead in there, but we're going to bring the truck in just in case he's not. We want to get the vehicle close, and we're going to look real good. Long story short, the cat was dead. She had killed him. She hit him low and took out the back of his lungs, but he was spent anyway. He couldn't go anymore. Mm-hmm. I think he would have came if she went any harder. But when Bonnie started pulling that cat out underneath that Jesse bush, John, he just kept coming. Huh. So 7'9" from nose to tail over the curves, 152.5 pounds on scales. Oof. I mean, the leopard of my lifetime. And for me, the number one greatest African trophy I've ever taken across, I don't know what's it been, 12, 13 safaris. And the thing for me, though, is at the end of the day, what do we really collect? We collect experiences. We collect stories. And I wrote an article about this for the NRA's American Hunter coming out soon called, I entitled it A Team Effort. Mm-hmm. Because really, I hit the cat, and it turned out that I had hit him literally just behind his lungs. She figures he might have turned just as the trigger broke. So it was a little bit far back, but enough to hold him. And miraculously, it held him long enough to keep him, I think, as we kind of postulate, think he was alive and growling all night long to keep the hyenas away. Mm. Because oftentimes, if you kill your leopard, the hyenas will come in. You might have a patch of fur or a tail, whatever they don't eat. I mean, they're eating machines. So it all worked out perfectly. And to the universe and the creator, I am eternally grateful. But wow, what a pucker factor that whole time. And the first beer after that cat was in the salt was the most delicious beer I've ever had.
Man, I was getting nervous just listening to the story of you telling it. I can't imagine what it must have been like actually there dealing with that.
It was fantastic. It really was. I mean, at the same time, I don't do drugs. I'm a drinker, but I'm not a drug user. I've always been a poor drug user. But I can imagine this is what goofballs would be like, where you're taking uppers and downers. I've screwed this up, but it's still on. And, is liquid gold death coming out of the bush at my face? Am I man enough to handle this? All those questions go through your mind. And boy, I tell you what, I really wish for all parties involved that I had killed him and he had flopped on the ground like a sack of potatoes and died underneath the tree. But as a writer, boy, what an experience.
Jeez. So when Tanya found the leopard that morning, did she just see him and shoot him there before he was able to do anything?
No, what had happened was he scurried off from where we first got, where we left the marker. He had scurried off in that Jess stuff, sounding like more than he was. What I think it was, he had bled out pretty hard, and this was the last exasperated breath he had. She was leopard crawling on her elbows and her belly to get underneath there.
Oh my gosh.
Bonnie and Shushi with her. Bonnie had a 308. Shushi had a big light. And she saw maybe a cantaloupe-sized hole through that Jesse bush where she saw spots. Mm-hmm. And she knew it was the cat because his head turned. She thought she saw his body turn toward her. And she gave it to him with a big 416 and, hit him, and just that put him out. That did. That was all he had left in the tank.
Man, so when you guys followed that leopard the previous night, you went 200 yards, marked the spot, and stopped. And so you think that leopard was like right there, like 20 yards away from you when you guys...
Less than 20 yards. We were walking into a trap, and she had the wherewithal and wisdom to stop it and pull out in the morning. We couldn't have scripted this any better. If I were to write a fictitious leopard story, it wouldn't have been any more fantastic than what happened.
Jeez.
And like I say, I'm eternally grateful that no one got hurt and no one got charged, because that was my main concern. If someone gets hurt following up my screw up, I'm never going to be able to live with myself.
Really,
so,
man.
Folks, if you're hunting a leopard, shoot true.
Jeez. And so, I mean, you were using a 9.3 with, you said, a 286 grain interlock?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of different stuff. This Ramirez gun, well, first of all, let's talk about the gun for a second.
Sure, yeah.
Todd Ramirez is a buddy of mine. He's a bespoke, a custom gun builder from Texas. And Todd builds a fantastic rifle. So this is a Mauser-style gun with Joe Smithson, detachable mounts, which are the highest end mounts you're ever going to find. And when I tell you, I'll send you a photo. Todd stocked this in a piece of walnut that you could stare at for weeks. It's just gorgeous. And every screw is timed perfectly. Every single little nuance, the bolt shroud, the safety shroud is color case hardened. The extractor band is blued. The magazine follower is blued. The iron sights are timed with a Warthog ivory flip-up sight. It's just fantastic. Rolled leather recoil pad, made to my dimensions for me. Todd wanted somebody to hunt his gun, and this comes with a very hefty price tag that I will never be able to afford. But it was absolutely an honor, to spend the time with this gun. But it was 9.362, which was a pretty universal choice, because if we saw the right buffalo, we were going to try to take him. Mm-hmm. And 9.3 is the legal minimum in Zimbabwe. So with a 286 grain, I think my hand loads were doing 2310. It would have handled them no problem. We had Barnes X bullets from Federal. They had a load that they do that worked real well in this gun. So I had those for the buffalo. But I chose the Hornady interlock primarily because it's a pretty, it's not soft, but it's not a real stiff cup and core bullet. So you'll get good expansion, at any distance, without having to, be concerned about having to go too hard and just whistle through. Mm-hmm. So for me, I could have gone lighter. There's some 250 and 232 grain loads out there, but I figured at the distances you're going to shoot a leopard, I think the longest a hunter's ever going to put a blind away is 100 yards, maybe, mm-hmm. if that long. Ours was exactly 60. I brought a little cute Leupold rangefinder over. So we measured the distance, and we had sighted the gun and made sure everything was, just spot on. So, with that gun, it was not a problem at all. And those interlocks, for an affordable traditional bullet, they're one of my favorites. They really are. They've always done real well by me.
Yeah, especially at short to moderate range like that, and especially out of a moderate velocity cartridge like the 9.3. That sounds like a situation just tailor-made for an interlock.
Oh, it's perfect. Look, I've shot a lot of them out of a 300 Win Mag. So, I'll get 220s going at 2,500 or 180s going, almost 3,000 even. It'll handle that. But it sure shines, my little 318 Wesley with a 205 grain interlock somewhere in the region of 2,600. It's just perfect. It's perfect. The bullet expands, the bullet holds its weight together. It's got good penetration, all the attributes you want. Would I stuff it in a 300 Ultra Mag? It would probably work, but there's better choices for that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Now, I seem to remember that you posted pictures of a whitetail that you shot this year with a 9.3. Was this with that same rifle?
It is. I had spoken to Todd. I said, "You want me to send it back?" He goes, "Well, don't you want to hunt it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to hunt it." He goes, "Well, keep it for deer season." So I had an 8-pointer present a shot on opening day, and one 286 grain Barnes X, and I had Barnes with me because there's bears where we hunt too. It just put him down like nobody's business, like a hammer. But surprisingly, very, very little meat loss. And you won't believe this, I recovered the bullet out of a whitetail.
That is interesting. What was your shot angle on it?
Quartering away. So kind of poked it up through the outside rib and into the offside shoulder. And I was shocked when the deer came back from the butcher and the bullet was in there.
Jeez.
100% weight retention. So it weighed exactly 286.0. And, it expanded just fine. Deer fell over about like the hand of God hit him. So there's something to be said about heavy bullets at moderate velocity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm looking at your Facebook post on it right now. Yeah. You said it expanded to 0.68 inches. So 1.85 times the original diameter.
What more could a guy ask for?
Yeah. Not much at all. Now with the Leopard, you're using that interlock. I'm assuming this interlock exited the Leopard.
Yes. Went right through.
Since you hit him a little far back, did you hit his liver?
I don't know, and the reason I don't know is because the second shot that Tanya took kind of made soup out of what was inside.
Yeah.
So there wasn't time for a proper autopsy, but you could see the entrance and exit wound. It had expanded, or at least it appeared to.
Yeah.
And one very, very interesting little fact.
Mm-hmm.
When we got the cat, and I remember they were talking about that limp, and Tanya points down, she goes, look at his leg. You could see where another leopard had bit him in the leg, God. And there were 2 teeth marks like a vampire got him.
Man.
And he bit him so hard he was limping on it. Now his face is all scarred up, which tells me that there's another Tom he's fighting with, and this guy's a bruiser. So if there's another Tom putting a hurting on him like that, there's another big cat in that particular area.
Jeez.
Not to mention the innumerable females that are running around.
Man, I'm very curious to see what the heck that cat looks like and see how badly he's scarred up.
Well, he's either like a little banty rooster who just doesn't care about size. But yeah, getting back to chorizo, it's a magical block. For me, it's been very, very special. Now, when we got the leopard out of that Jesse bush and then we took him out to the Sand River for photos and made a nice little mound, and Floyd comes over, the camp manager, Floyd Ambrose, and he says, Sitatunga, that's the company that has Sitatunga Safaris here's been pretty good to you. I said, yeah, it has. He goes, you know where you are, right? I said, I'm right here, Floyd. What do you mean? What the hell kind of question is that? He goes, no, turn around. And I'm looking across the river going, this is where we hung it, but what do you, I'm not getting it, Floyd. He walks me out in the river and he goes, now let's look at it from this way. And it dawned on me. When I hunted chorizo in 2018 with Brian Van Blurk, I had taken 2 buffalo bulls with a double rifle, my Heim 470, and one of them, died on the opposite shore of the river because we had come from the other way, and the other I finished off at 186 yards in the river, 100 yards away from where the leopard was 5 years later.
Jeez.
So it's kind of cool. Tanya had me a silver ring made by a lady in Bulawayo, where she lives in Zimbabwe, that had the coordinates of what we now named Massaro Beach. That part of the river, that's mine now. I lay claim to that in chorizo. What are the odds of that happening? Of all the places in the world, you go back to an area and 2 of the greatest hunting experiences of my life happened within 100 yards of one another.
My goodness, that is super cool. And it is interesting. If you want to get all woo-woo about stuff and everything and be like, oh man, like your chi or whatever is just absolutely perfect there. I don't know what the deal is, but that's maybe one explanation.
When the universe, offers an opportunity, you take it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you mentioned earlier about how much trouble you would have been in if you guys would have accidentally shot a female leopard. Can you talk about what the legal requirements are for a leopard there, male, female? Is there like an age limit that you're supposed to abide by on leopard, that sort of thing?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question as far as a Tom goes. I know females are off limits. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. In some countries you can shoot female leopards, but I distinctly remember Tanya saying, do not, giving me the drill, do not shoot unless I instruct you to, because if it is a female, you don't pay the fine, Phil, I do. I said, I would probably not be drinking with you at the next Dallas Safari Club meeting.
Yeah.
So the onus is on the professional hunter. And like I say, there's some good hunters out there. Tanya's among the best. Brian Van Blurk's another great one. Buzz Charlton's a great one. Teeny Cock is another great one, as far as cats go in Zimbabwe. It's a specialized means of hunting, and guys either like it or they don't. It's kind of how it seems. Tanya likes it. Brian likes it. They prefer lions, leopards, that kind of stuff. They like the chess game, but it's that confidence in the identification of the cat. In those low light situations with a hunter who's going to get all sorts of jumpy on you, because think about it. How many leopards has the average guy seen in a tree inside 100 yards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, zero, probably. Yeah.
It's right. It's a very unique situation. I was blessed in Zambia years ago on our honeymoon back in 2011. If you're looking for a place to hunt cats, Zimbabwe is great, but Zambia is just as good. The Luangwa Valley is crawling with cats. So we had a situation where I had shot a buffalo on the first day of our safari, and I didn't have a ton of money at the time, so I'm kind of going through the price list. And a hyena was $500. And I looked at my wife. I said, wow, how cool would it be to have like a dirtbag hyena rug with his mouth open, looking like something out of the Lion King? Mm-hmm. Let's hunt a hyena. So we hung a bait, and it's a very similar process to a leopard, except you actually want it lower so that the hyena can grab it. They come in pretty readily. So we built a blind, and on the way, Nicky Whiteman was a professional hunter in that Zambian hunt. He says, we had 3 Mexican clients fly in on the previous safari, and all they wanted were tom leopards. And they tagged out in 6 days. It took 3 toms out of this particular block in 3 toms in 6 days.
Jeez.
And they left early. I said, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, yeah, so I don't, it's pretty well spooked out for the leopards. So, we'll have a hyena, no problem. So just before dark, or before light, it's still dark out, and you hear the hyenas yip, 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 and then all of a sudden you hear that signature cough. And that's a leopard coming in, and lo and behold, the Massaro luck held. Here comes, not a hyena, which I can afford, but a 7-foot tom leopard that walks in with shoes on at 30 yards. And I didn't have the 10,000 to shoot him, but I did get to see him. And to have a leopard tom chewing on a buffalo shoulder blade at 30 yards is quite the experience. So, the Luangwa Valley is another area where you can really get into a good cat. But like you asked before, is it a 14-day hunt? It is. So it's a bit of a dedicated thing. It comes at a higher premium usually in the daily rate department than does a buffalo hunt. So it's a little bit more expensive. And would I do it for my first dangerous game thing? Nah, I wouldn't recommend it. I want to see a guy do a buffalo, because with a buffalo comes all those opportunities for plains game and to see different stuff by walking around. With a leopard, you really need to be a little bit more focused and realize you're not going to be spending nearly as much time on the trigger, but the reward is well worth the effort.
Yeah, and you like you said, with your Massaro luck, you shot that cat early in your hunt, and like you said earlier about Boddington, and I know there's a lot of guys that are in his boat too. Sometimes you go all 14 days and don't see anything, and sometimes it takes you 2, 3, 4, 5 hunts like that before you get an opportunity on a leopard.
So I was talking to a dear friend of mine about, he was a professional hunter in Botswana, Jay Leyendecker, and he said, Phil, I bet you could spend $100,000 on leopard hunts before you could top that cat. Because like you say, you could go 14 days without even having the leopard hit your bait. If he's got a block of meat somewhere laid up, why would he move?
Yeah.
It's a real challenge to try and get a cat who is so smart that he knows where he's secreted his meat, what he's killed, to find a piece of meat that he knows isn't his in a weird situation and relax enough to present a shot. That takes a lot of work, and the stars need to align. And God love Tanya, we got it done with 4 sits, 3 days. And when I told Craig, you got to be kidding me. No, for once the dice rolled my way.
Now, did you get to shoot any plains game for bait on this hunt?
No, I didn't. No, we had the one zebra, and my buddy Mike McNulty was with me on the hunt, and he had taken a zebra. So we used they kept the rear quarters for meat. We used the front quarters of his zebra to freshen those baits up. And like I say, we were only there a total of, I think, 6 or 7 days. So we didn't need that much meat.
Yeah.
We would have. We were at the stage where we were going to take another zebra.
Okay. And so in that area, zebra is your prime bait for him then, as opposed to impala or something like that?
It is for a couple of reasons. There are impala there. There's plenty of impala there, and impala can make a good bait. But a zebra is a bigger chunk of meat, and the zebra's fat is more resistant to rot and will last longer than will an impala, bush buck, or anything like that.
That is a very interesting point. Goes also into the just the strategy and the tactics involved with everything, all the details involved in getting this leopard into the tree too. And I also imagine that, like you're talking about, that when that leopard was able to reach down and pull up that zebra leg to eat it, it was obvious, okay, this is a tom. It's a whole different ball game if that's an impala front shoulder up there too.
Well, they'll hang the whole impala when they use them.
Okay.
They'll wire its feet together over the branch. I remember watching old videos where Andrew Dawson would say if the ribs are crunched and eaten off, it's probably a tom. But if they're only nibbled around to get the meat, it's a female. So it's a little bit more difficult to tell just by visually inspecting the bait when you've got toms and females on there at the same time. But with modern trail cams, it really tells you the whole story. And that was nice. It really got me excited because when you don't have anything going on for 3 or 4 days, and mind you, here's my buddy Mike shooting everything Zimbabwe's got to offer. He went on a tear, buddy. So I was happy as hell for him, but it's like, I want to play too. And finally, this guy shows up on camera. It's like, you have my undivided attention.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, much more of an advanced hunter's pursuit and something that's, like you said, more dedicated, more focused. We're going to go and we're going to do this right, and we're going to hopefully have it all come together for us.
Right. I mean, so here's the deal. With the buffalo, you never know. You can't tell by foot size. You can tell it's a big foot. Sometimes smaller buffalo, younger buffalo have big feet. And I've seen ancient Daga boys have tiny feet. So you don't know what's on the other end of the string as far as when you start tracking. But it's the constant involvement and the stimulation of being on the tracks and the suspense of all that. Okay, we blew the stalk and the herd, buggered off because the wind changed. Oh, but look, there's a 55-inch kudu that we can now on the way back to the truck. Or, we're trying to find tracks and we see a herd of eland. So you've got that kind of thing. With a leopard, you have to be focused on that one advantage. Yeah, I see the kudu, but we're going to lay off it for now because we're going to try and get to that bait. Check this. You don't want to go a couple of days without checking a bait. You don't even want to go 1 day, really, because if the tom comes in and finishes it, he's gone. He's going to go hunting. He's got to eat. So, you kind of got that time flow thing going on where he finds it and you find that he found it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also one of these things, too, that people that say maybe they've never hunted Africa before, but they've heard a little bit about it, or maybe they've hunted one time for plains game. Oh, I'm out there hunting for kudu and I see a nice impala, I can shoot it. And you can, right? And you talked about that with the buffalo and all that. Like, that doesn't happen on a leopard hunt. And even if you have a leopard tag, you're out there, say, looking for bait and a leopard runs out in front of you, 0% chance you guys are shooting that leopard, even if it does happen, because you got to make, 110% certain that it's a legal leopard and all of that stuff. And,
So we had tracked our leopard, to your point right here. Mm-hmm. We had tracked him, and Tanya says, we're going to pull out. And we hung the marker where he was underneath the jess bush, and we had walked out to get back to the vehicle. We walked, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile out to that sand river because it was easier walking through that thick stuff to get back to where the vehicle was. When we got to the edge of the river, Floyd Ambrose stopped. He says, stop, and he shines his flashlight, and there's leopard eyes in the grass.
Oh, geez.
And I'm going, shoot the cat. That's the cat. Kill him. And he goes, nope. And it was the female. She was there. So imagine that screw up, because think about that now. We had a wounded cat. We saw a cat. Right. Gosh. Shoot the cat. Well, so it takes not only dedication, but some self-preservation and patience not to screw it up by getting overzealous.
Yeah. My goodness, man, that could have really turned into a mess. If
think about having 2 cats dead then, right?
Or having 2 wounded cats running around out there too, shooting at one in the dark. My goodness. And one that's illegal to shoot too, that's wounded.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. No, and again, how many leopards have I seen in my life? Probably 5. And some of them have only been glimpses while we were either driving or tracking buffalo. Like I said, we had the one very interesting experience where he came into the hyena bait. But, my time, viewing and watching and observing leopards is extremely limited. It's much more on TV and video than it is on in real life. So, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. And when you pay somebody for their expertise and guide, you had to guide you, listen to them. They know what they're doing and you don't.
Now, what are you doing for taxidermy with this Big Tom?
I am out of room. I have filled my home and my shop and my office up. So most of my things in this life are European mounts. But before everyone throws stones at me, I am unabashedly doing a full body mount on this cat, simply because he warrants it. He's a warrior. He's regal. I will probably never top this cat. I don't know if I'll ever hunt another leopard, again. If I have the opportunity and the financial means, would I do it? Yeah, I did enjoy it. But for me right now, this is the leopard of a lifetime. And if I had to meet the maker and sit pat with just him, I'd be totally fine. So I think he warrants a full body mount. My taxidermist here in New York is a great cat guy. You can really tell the measure of a taxidermist. If their cat's eyes kind of look like they're myopic, then you don't want to use that taxidermist for a cat. Maybe he's good with deer and stuff. But when a taxidermist can get a cat's face to look like it's focusing on you, that's when you've really got a guy who's got the skills and talents and attention to detail that you want. And Matt Pigliavento at Lasting Memories Taxidermy here in New York, he's a good cat guy. He's done mountain lions. I've seen some bobcat work he's done. It's just fantastic. And he was jumping up and down at the opportunity to mount this leopard. So pretty soon he'll be coming home. And I told Matt, take your time. There's no rush.
What time of year did you shoot this cat?
August.
Okay. And was that just when you had the time to go over there, or is that like a especially good time to hunt leopard?
No, well, it worked out that the way the antelope were dropping their young, this was a better time, because if there's a lot of calves, being born and lots of easy prey, it's a little bit harder to get a cat to come to a zebra quarter.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they did to me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So Tanya had recommended August for that, and it was rather dry. There were a lot of wildfires. And I mean a lot of wildfires. You could see them burning all night long. So it was rather dry, and they were also concentrated near water holes. So that made it a little bit easier for us to select those areas where we wanted to hang the baits. So what you're looking for is an area where the cat's got access to water pools, where the cat has a thick place to hide out during the day, and you've got a tree that is easily observable across some sort of barrier. So in each particular instance, we would have, had a gully or a road, or in this where I shot mine, there was a small sand drainage, and we were up on the hill across that. It kind of gives the leopard a sense of security to come into the bait.
Mm-hmm.
So, that time of year with the water being a little dried up, and a lack of easily obtainable food in young antelope, it made sense, and kind of hopefully it would put the odds in our favor, and it did.
Well, so it sounds like you had a heck of a year with all of your hunts that you ended up doing. So what does the future hold for you in 24 and 25 and beyond, do you think?
Well, I'll be back in Zimbabwe in 3 years. I've got a couple of buddies of mine. We're going to put together, not a last hurrah, but we're going to try to get the three of us, finally together all at once over there. Not sure what or where we'll do it, but it'll be in Zim, because there's a couple of folks we want to hunt with. And I think I've got something coming up in Namibia. I'm trying to iron out, but there's nothing really in concrete yet. I'm kind of going with the flow and with the way the world's working, and my schedule is. It'll see what presents itself. But there's always a good fun media hunt to do something on. But nothing I can tell you yes in concrete right now.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, it's always great talking to you, Phil. This was a heck of a story, and I'm glad you took the time to share it with us. Where can the audience go to see more of your work, where you write and all of that stuff?
Primarily these days, I got 3 publications. There's the Gun Digest magazine, which I write for. I've got monthly columns and just about a feature in every one. Quite obviously, the Gun Digest Annual, and both of those are available at gundigeststore.com. I do a lot for the NRA's American Hunter, which is americanhunter.org. And you can go, there's a publication I do a monthly piece for called American Shooting Journal. And I don't know their website, and I should, and I don't, and I'm sorry, but a busy man doesn't know everything all the time. But either that, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Just Phil Massaro, PhilMassaro. Give it a share, give it a like. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, good deal. I'll put links to all of that stuff on there too, and I will put a link to the article that you wrote. You said it's for American Hunter that's coming out on this specific hunt, right?
Yes, I'm thinking it's the February issue, so it shouldn't be too awful long till that's in your mailbox.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, Phil, it was great talking to you today. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show.
John, always a pleasure to be here, and you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed listening to that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Now, Tanya Blake's Instagram handle and website are in the show notes if you want to get in touch with her. I have never met or hunted with Tanya, but if Phil says she's solid, then that's good enough for me. For more leopard content, check out episode 158 with Gavin Lippies and episode 154 with Kevin Robertson. They talk about hunting leopard with dogs and hunting leopard over bait in those two episodes. Additionally, links to Phil's other appearances on the podcast are in the show notes too. The same is true with my previous work for the 9.3 by 62 millimeter Mauser for both the blog and the podcast. Links to all of those things are in the show notes. Okay, next week, the Africa series continues, and we're going to hear from another podcast listener about a couple of great hunts he had with big game hunting adventures in Africa in 2022 and 2023. Among other things, he shares his thoughts on the 7mm rim mag versus the 300 mag on plains game over there, what it was like hunting very early in the year versus very late in the year, etc. That was another great show, so make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. I will be at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas 22 to 24 January. I have some meetings scheduled on my calendar. Let me know if you will be there for the show and would like to meet up. Now, that show's not open to the general public, but if you are a reporter or an industry rep or whatever and you're going to be there, let me know and we will do our best to meet up. Now, I will be at the SCI show, Nashville, 1 to 3 February 2024. That show is open to the general public, and I would love to meet you while I'm there. Kubis and Christian, two of my PHs from Africa, will be there too. Christian was in episode 261 that we recorded on the podcast hunt. So if you've hunted with them in the past, or if you're going on a hunt with us in the future, or if you're thinking about going on a hunt with us in the future, or whatever, if you just want to come by and say hello, we would love to meet you. I'm working out the details with Kubis and Christian right now. More to follow, but there's a real good likelihood we will be hanging out in our hotel bar for a set period of time, the nights of 1 and 2 February, and you can just come by and say hello as it fits into your schedule. We'll also be on the show floor and whatnot, wandering around saying hello to other people that we know there during the day too. But like I said, meeting us in the evenings is probably going to be your best bet for working that stuff out. I have a couple of really cool pieces of big game hunting podcast swag. I will give those to the first 5 podcast listeners who come by and say hello while I'm there. I personally will not be going back to Africa in 2024, but I will be returning next year, and I'm very likely going to do a podcast hunt in late July 2025. I'm about 95% there with confirming that. More to follow. But as I record this, we do still have a couple of openings left for 2024 in March, September, October, and early November. We're also booking for 2025 at this moment, too, and we still have availability for most months then, but I will tell you things have really picked up on that front. I booked 5 hunts just this week for 2025, so that things are starting to fill up for next year, too. Like I said a couple times in the past, don't wait to hunt in Africa if that's something you want to do. There's no guarantee you'll have the time, the money, or the physical ability to hunt if you put things off for a year or two. I've seen it happen to people far too many times to count. So make 2024 or 2025 the year you make those dreams come true. If you book with us, you'll be hunting with Kubis, Christian, and or Johan in that exact same area where Michael, Fernando, and I all hunted on the podcast hunt in May of 2023. I'll also be available to help you answer questions, sort out logistics, and just do everything possible to ensure your mind is at ease and that you have a fun trip. You can hunt plains game, you can hunt buffalo there, you can hunt both if you'd like. Email me, john@thebiggamehuntingblog.com, or visit bestsafarihunt.com to learn a little bit more about things. Be sure to state you are a podcast listener, and I will give you a special bonus if you book with us. And also, don't forget to click the link in the show notes or go to huntingguns101.com and sign up there to get that ebook on the best hunting cartridges and to join my email list. And last thing, please do me a big favor. Hit that subscribe or follow button in whatever podcast app you are using if you enjoyed this episode. And please, it would do me a big favor if you left a rating and or a review for the show as well. Doing those things helps me reach other hunters like you who enjoy this sort of content. And if you subscribe, you'll also start to receive my new episodes automatically every Thursday when I release them. Remember, you can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and we can help. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.
This show may be over, but we have plenty more for you on our website. For more information on today's topic, as well as lots of other useful hunting resources, head over to thebiggamehuntingblog.com. We look forward to having you back for the next episode. But until then, happy hunting.